Welcome, listeners. This is Victoria with Women's Issues, Women's Voices. And as always, when I'm on the air, we just heard Amy Steinberg's wonderful song, Purpose. Living is the Purpose of Life. Women's Issues, Women's Voices is a feminist talk show that covers a wide range of interests from the perspective of women. We empower and give a voice to women in our community and host special events promoting their talents. Programming like this is not shared anywhere else in the area. And we are a collective that is part of 89.5 FM KOPN Columbia. So tonight I am very excited because I feel like, my guest this evening really lives that song, my introduction song, Living is the Purpose of Life. And so in my Zoom studio, I have with me Jean Voice Dart. And Jean is an author, a graphic artist, and a performance artist. She has over 40 years of experience in both private and group sessions as a registered music therapist, an art therapy practitioner, a creative arts teacher, and a coach. She helps other folks discover, identify, embrace, and release blocked feelings and emotions through the creative, expressive, and performing arts. Those working with Jean fine-tune their creative arts skills and gain effective coping strategies to manage life's challenges. And I can attest, we also have fun. I was very fortunate to get connected with Jean through my friend Laura Donnelly, who I have interviewed before for this show. And Laura said, "Hey, you've got to check out this wonderful opportunity on Facebook. You go and you just spend the hour together, and it's all about just being creative. No expectations, no real rules. There's this beautiful framework where we gather together, and like people have worked on things as diverse as some folks have been reading books, some folks have been writing, some folks have been doing performance art or physical art, crocheting and quilt making. I mean, it's just fascinating to me. And so that is how I met Jean, and then had the opportunity to be one of the folks that are involved with the recent book that she published. And I said, "Hey, I wanna have you on KOPN on Women's Issues, Women's Voices, so that you can share what you do with a greater Mid-Missouri community and really around the world because we're on the internet. So that means we're everywhere." So Jean, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience and tell them a little bit about yourself?
Wow, I don't know what else I can add to that. That's pretty much sums it up right there. I'll be seeing you later. No, thank you so
Little bit of
much.
a fan club here.
You're very kind. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. Yes, I'm very passionate about the arts, and I've been that way all my life. I remember when I was a little girl, and we had this testing, and I can't remember what it's called, but they test you in school to see what you probably will end up being when you're grown up.
Mm-hmm.
and I tested. I think it was split 3 ways equally for writing, music, and art. It was like
Wow.
30% there, 30% there. You're going to be this. And I came home and I said, "Wow, look what I'm going to be." I was so happy. And my parents I could see on their face well, yeah, that's nice, but you might want to find a different way to use that to make money. Yes. Maybe you could teach it, or something. But yeah, the arts, just playing with the arts, is my passion, and it's been my journey, and meeting so many people that use the arts to discover and identify and release blocked feelings and let it go. And as you said, we allow freedom to do that.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. And so as a child, you already had this propensity, this love of creation and art. And I'm chuckling to myself because I remember one of my fond childhood memories is in fourth grade, my teacher telling my parents we had this event that happened every year, and the kids were supposed to make flags. And my teacher saying that it was obvious that I was the only kid who had made my own flag because everybody else's came and they were perfectly cut out and mine was like a burlap piece of burlap fabric tied to a stick, and then I had sewn things to it, and that, and I didn't realize what an odd kid I was, that like out of,
Mhm.
25 kids in the class, I was the only one that had made this thing. And I think that's part of what helped me as a kid, is that I was obtuse, that I was this creative being when everyone else
Yes.
around me was very linear and very, their parents were doing the project for them to make sure that it looked right.
Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when you were saying that, I was like, yeah, I remember having that love as a kid. But the difference for me is that I believed that I wasn't supposed to follow that, and then I needed to do something much more practical.
Well, applause to you. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
it took me a
I,
while to reconnect with that part of myself.
yeah, it's it's something that's so natural. We have the blessing of my husband and I of watching our granddaughter now about 8 hours a day,
Oh,
and
wow.
in between, I'm doing private sessions with coaching and therapy and working with clients, um, and he'll take over when I have something, but it's just watching her from birth to now nearly age 3.
Mhm.
Immediately, it was so natural for her to uh, try out rhythms with
Mhm.
rattles and banging spoons and
Mhm.
things and singing and humming and dancing so early. The movement, as you
Mhm.
mentioned, it's just a way of connecting to life and
Mhm.
expressing our feelings in that, through that. And
Yeah.
it's very beautiful and very natural. And it's just awakened me to a new level. I've been doing this, as you said, for almost 45 years, um, 44, I think, this year.
Mhm.
And and just watching her has awakened me to even more ways that I can let go and free myself and be healthy through the arts. Just a beautiful thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But you shared, Jean, before we got on the air, that it wasn't like you're not where you are today because it was always this supportive and easy, and and that you were just allowed to be this unimpeded creative being, that you had some really difficult challenges, and art was there for you. Do you want to
Yeah.
share a little bit about
Yes,
that?
I would love to share that because I think there are a lot of people out there that are going through so many different things, especially we all have experienced secondary trauma through COVID, watching, tragedies over the years and maybe personally in our own lives, going through all this. Um, and for me, I had several experiences and continue to have chronic health challenges that I deal with every day. Uh, I was born with like joint hypermobility syndrome, and that caused me to be kind of bendy and floppy and very easily tearing
Mm,
um, and fracturing and injuring myself and fatiguing very
mhm,
easily. And I knew that I was different, when I would be doing the daily activities that we do when we get into early school, childhood,
mhm.
and even before getting into school, the kids running around the neighborhood, I couldn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
I would do an injure and, I would overextend all the time. And soon afterwards, I started falling down, and I had multiple concussions and TBIs.
And so you're
But
talking about
yeah,
how I mean, this is long before they really understood the
they
impact
really did
of.
not understand this. There wasn't a way for me to get tested for this or do anything about it. So there's so many misdiagnoses and
Mm-hmm.
so much shame and guilt. And
Mm-hmm.
I've actually written a couple papers on my friends' guilt and shame and how, working through that can really help you shift and find your way and your mission and purpose in life, which I did. But yeah, because of that, because of all that, I ended up making poor decisions and, not so healthy relationships because I had low self esteem. I also have a free mini book I offer people about boosters for self esteem and confidence that I'd
Mm-hmm.
love to offer your listeners.
Yeah.
We could talk about that later, but yeah, so what happened was I was assaulted by my teacher and by a doctor.
And this
Those
is
were
like
people,
college age?
yeah, well, no, I was 18. I was just
Mm.
from out of high school and getting into college. And so that was a trauma that I had to work through. But because of that, I was studying as a performing artist and I shifted into music therapy. And it was
Mm.
kind of new in 72, 73.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, yeah. And I don't know that that would have really happened had I not had this journey. Uh, it helped me discover what I love. Music is therapy, art therapy. I became certified as an art therapist, a registered music therapist, special ed. I got my master's in special ed, worked with gifted, with people in prisons, with seniors in residential care, people in hospitals, and just saw the miracle of the arts and how people come out of their shell and face, as you and I chatted earlier, face ourselves, love ourselves. That's what true courage is about, you know, facing ourselves and loving ourselves. And it's just a beautiful thing. So I'm
Yeah.
grateful for my
As
journey.
I'm as I'm listening to, I mean, the phrase post-traumatic growth,
Yes.
that that they know now, because we've experienced this, and my definition for trauma is something that we either happens to us or we observe that overwhelms our capacity to cope at the time
Mm.
and leaves us feeling helpless or hopeless. And I really think that at the time is important, because if we then can go, okay, what do we learn, and how do we help ourselves figure out how to cope, how to heal, how to let go, then we can actually transform that helpless, hopeless into that post-traumatic growth, right? And it sounds like that's what you did for yourself
Yes.
through this choice and through this process.
Yes, very much so.
Wow.
And it led me to become an expressive arts grief and trauma coach and therapist and really kind of shift later, more recent years into that. But my own healing had to come first
Hmm.
before being able to do that. And it brings me so much joy. Now I can honestly say that every day is a journey of joy for me. That's my life now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's I've mentioned to you before. I think that's one of the things that I resonated with when I started getting to know you, is that in some ways, like, my own uh passion to support others to feel, find, feel safety in their own bodies, whatever that means to them, came
Yeah.
out of my own experiences of traumas and
Yes.
my own challenges. I mean, even though I've done so much healing work, it's not like they magically go away. I
Right.
mean, even today, as I'm doing this interview with you, I've said that I'm coming out of a autoimmune a, a period where my, for whatever reason, I had this joint aches and blah blah, sleeplessness and all these things that you know that I have learned over the years how to continue to still live my life fully while also living the reality of this body that I live in, so
Mm.
it's like, so the work I do has been influenced by my own process. My own process has been influenced by and I don't even like to
Yeah.
call it work. It's like the
Mm.
passion, right? The
Yes,
passion
it's
for
your
what I do.
passion. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for being vulnerable on the radio
Mm.
and sharing that in this interview.
Well,
I
that's
think
one of
it's,
my superpowers.
yeah, me too. Yeah.
Yeah, and what we talked about earlier, it's there was a time in my life where um I didn't know how to be vulnerable and safe in myself.
Yes.
And like you, although I'm not hypermobile, that not knowing how to uh stay within myself even as I was giving and sharing and being my creative being. And those who are not seeing me on the video, my arms are getting bigger and bigger and wider and wider, right? And for me, that was a part of my process, is that I didn't know how to stay centered in myself while I was
Yes.
expanding in all that way. And yeah, that's
Hmm.
been part of my process, is to be able to be vulnerable with you, with my clients, with my partners, friends, listeners, and also be very much staying in my core self, right?
That's beautiful the way you describe that, and that so fits with dance and movement,
Mhm.
and yeah. Another phrase that I've worked with a lot over the years is compassionate detachment, and
Mm,
they seem opposite, compassion and detachment, but that is mastering that has just changed the world for me. And I think often women struggle with that in my experience, men too, but many times women, because we are put into the role of nurturing and care providing, and we have these big hearts, and we feel, and and so we have this compassion, but sometimes we can go beyond boundaries, just with the same as me with my hypermobility,
mhm,
flexing too far, and oops, I just tore something, and
mhm,
I don't know, I'm walking around with a torn muscle. I don't even notice because there's so many tears I've gotten used to.
mm.
But compassionate
Yes,
detachment,
what a
you
great.
have to have that love and that compassion. You don't want to squash it and squish it. And sometimes we do that and we stuff it because it becomes too painful. But we want to keep the compassion, we want to keep that, but yet have these boundaries and have that detachment so that we don't become someone else and
Mm,
cross over too far. And this just fits so much with my dealing with hypermobility.
mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
learning how to truly live and love the body that we are
Hmm.
each in, right?
Yes.
Rather than, I mean, I feel like, our culture is so much about, oh, something feels wrong here, let's pull it, let's take it out or medicate it, or
Oh
right.
my
And
gosh.
and there's a role for some of that, and yet there's also the, hey, can we slow it down and figure out what the body's actually asking for? Yeah.
Yes, the body is miraculous, and our friend, even though I did not like my body for a number of years,
Mm-hmm.
finding that friendly relationship with the body, mind, spirit, emotions, loving the emotions, like I said, loving our guilt and shame, loving our anger, loving our pain, loving our fatigue, loving all of it, the resentment, whatever the feeling is, tuning in, as I say, tuning in, taking time, tuning in, tuning out the negativity after we accept it, and then tuning up to the joy and blessings and lessons, um, just incorporating all of that into our lives.
And a great
Yeah.
phrase. Tuning in, tuning out, tuning up.
Yes.
Yeah.
And tuning in doesn't mean, okay, I just felt something lousy. Now I'm going to get rid of it, as you said. It's
Mm-hmm.
tuning in, embracing it, um, sitting with it, you know?
And what I tell my clients is, I call it the check-in, tuning into where are you in physical space, letting yourself orient. And if the space you are in doesn't feel supportive, like that you have the capacity to move where you're looking, right? Where you're sitting, how you're laying or sitting. And then tuning into the breath and to gravity to support. And that tuning in isn't about um, tuning in to try to numb out the thing that's bothering you.
Yeah, right,
It,
exactly.
it's to be able to tune in to that thing that is challenging safely
Exactly.
at the same time. And I think
Yeah.
that's a really great segue, a great place to introduce uh, that the song that's going to play as we go from first half to second half is Sarah Bareilles' Brave. And we
Yes, I
come
love it.
back in the second half because I think this is what we're talking about. We're talking about learning the experience of bravery. And then so I'm in my Zoom studio. If you're just logging in, we're talking with Jean Voice Dart, who is an author, graphic artist, and performance artist, who also just does so many wonderful things to support people to feel their feelings and to create and to be brave. And so we're going to come back in the second half. We're going to talk more about what Jean's doing now, and Jean, when we come back, I'm also going to have you give your contact information.
Okay.
Hey.